Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Kat here, and yeah, today I'm going to do a quick vlog talking about my travel history and what it was like. I started traveling when I was a lot younger, when I was a kid, because I was born in London, Ontario, and then we moved from there to Northwest Territories, which is all in Canada, if you didn't know. Yeah, we went there, then we went back home to where I lived most of my life, which was St. John's, Newfoundland. And so I traveled when I was a kid, so that was the thing. So I don't remember any of it. Yeah, that's what happened. In 2019, not 2019, in 2009, I had this urge inside of me telling me, like, I need to go, kind of thing. I need to go to start my traveling, or I'm going to regret it. That really drove me with my job that I had at the time, which was at Zellers. I was working as a stocker, for like an overnight stocker for the shelves, so putting things in on the shelf. So that's what I would do. And so I saved as much as I could. I thought $600 would be enough, but boy was I wrong. Like, oh my god. That was a bad idea to go with $600. But I was staying at a hostel, and I was able to pay for a month, and then I did have enough to get my insurance for when you stop working. If you get so many hours, you get unemployment insurance, and that's what I got, and that saved my life pretty much, because it was wintertime and I was in a big city. I actually thought Toronto was smaller than Vancouver. That's how much I knew about Canada, pretty much. I thought Toronto was a smaller one and that Vancouver was the big one. So I went, and yeah, I made some friends. It was a lot of fun. I finally kind of came out of my really socially awkward phase where I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any real friends. I didn't really talk much to people. I was very antisocial. I only had, I think, one or two real good friends, and that was it. I finally came out of my shell thanks to going to stay in hostels. Hostels really brought that out of me. It was like forcing me to do what scared me the most, and that was being around people and talking to people. I finally, like, if you're a socially awkward person like I was, I couldn't look people in the eye, I couldn't talk very much, stay in a hostel. If you go traveling, you will change completely. And so I stayed there a few months. I tried to look for a job, but it was very difficult. I don't know why it was so hard to find a job there. Like, I tried and tried, and I couldn't find anything. And I think it's because it was, there's so much people trying to find that one job, and one job is applied by thousands of people. So if you don't have the experience, you're going to be put down on the list. So I couldn't find anything there, so I decided to take a leap. I took a bus to Vancouver. Vancouver, I went and I did couch surfing for a little bit, and then I found a job at the hostel I found in Vancouver, and he hired me the next day. And yeah, I was able to start doing front work, reception work. I met so many people because of it. I was a cleaner, so I was doing front work, assistant manager. I also covered for the nighttime security sometimes. And I met so many people from all over the world, and I met so many Japanese people. So I was like, oh my god, I need to visit Japan, because, I met so many people from Japan. So I thought, okay, the first place I'm gonna go is Japan. It was completely different from what I thought I was going to do, because I was more into Korean stuff and Taiwanese stuff. So I was like, I'll go because I know more Japanese people now, so I want to go visit them. So that's why I went to Japan. I didn't know much about Japan. I just kind of went to Kohl's bookstore or something. I forget what the name was. I don't think it's Kohl's, because it was a lot smaller of a store, but it was one of the bigger chains bookstore, and looked at some books, some phrases, just to learn a couple things. But I didn't really know very much about Japan when I went to go to Japan. So I left on September 15th, I think it was, and I went and I had a work for stay program, pretty much. So I had 3 months to do working in a hostel, and they provide you a free bed, which was awesome because I didn't have to pay for my stay. And once a month, since I was there 3 months, I got to be able to eat out at izakaya with other people that I work with and from other locations as well. So the moment I got there, I was already immersed in like living in Japan, not just touring Japan, because I only work about 4 hours a day, and then after that you're free. And I highly recommend doing it, because if you want to know what it's like to work with Japanese people, that's a good way to start, is to do work. And you don't get any money for it. You get no money, which would be illegal. But that's a really good place to start, to see if you can handle kind of like the Japanese work culture, even though it's only a few hours a day. Then after I went to Taiwan, and I thought, oh, I'm going to love Taiwan a whole lot more, because that was in the back of my mind. I was more into Korean dramas and Taiwanese dramas, even though I only seen 2, which pretty much was not much. So I went there, and although I really liked it, after Japan, it just did not compare to how much I loved staying in Japan. And even though it wasn't an easy 3 months, it was something that made me look at, like, I could see myself living here forever. So yeah, that's what I did. And I stayed there only 5 days. I forgot to get bubble tea while I was in Taiwan, so I need to go back just to get bubble tea, because bubble tea is my life. And so yeah, I went there. Then I had to go back home, because obviously I couldn't stay in either place. I met someone, and I started dating him for, I think, almost a year we were together or so. We met in the same hostel, and we decided to go traveling together across Canada. He met my family, because we were actually kind of getting a little serious. But once we started traveling across Canada, I worked a little bit we worked together in Alberta, Canmore or Kelowna. Yeah, we worked in Kelowna, BC, and then we went by bus again, which I do not advise anyone to go by bus unless you can sleep on a bus, because the first time I went, which I did not mention, I could not sleep for the entire 3 days going to Vancouver from Toronto. So it was horrible. So we went there. He met my family. I worked for a little bit in Dollarama, and then we went back to Vancouver, and I applied for my working holiday visa, which I got approved for. So we went by train from Seattle to San Francisco and LA. We stayed there in each area a few days, and then we went to Thailand, and we were expected to go a few other places, but his tooth, like the front part of his tooth, it was kind of iffy, like it kind of broke, so he needed to go back sooner so he could fix it. And so we cut our trip short, and we went back to Japan, and then I started looking for work. I went to Osaka, which everybody, when they first met me in Japan, in Tokyo, they all said, oh, have you been to Osaka? You remind me of a person from Osaka, like an Osakan person. The way you, like, your mannerisms and behavior. Like, I'm a joker, like, I like to make jokes, and I'm high energy. So a lot of people thought I stayed in Osaka, and I didn't. So I said, let's go to Osaka instead of being in Tokyo. And for some reason, it was really hard to find a job. I was like, people were looking at, well, you're only going to be here a year. I don't want to hire, someone for a year, and then you're going to be gone. And it's like, well, I'm planning on getting married. So nothing like that worked. I did find a job in Kitakyushu, which is my 3rd favorite place to be. And yeah, that's where I went and worked for 3 months, which they did not tell me I needed to have a actual bachelor's degree in any of the interview process at all. So since they didn't say that, they just jumped at me, oh yeah, by the way, we need your transcript. After all of the process of getting trained and being in school, now you want proof. It was like, I didn't even say I had a degree. Like, I'm here for a year. I want to work for the year. If I get married, I will continue working, kind of thing, because I've heard as long as you spoke English and you got a visa, you can get a job. It was very hard. So I ended up staying there, working as much as I could in Eikaiwas, which is after school programs for kids and adults. It's not in a public school setting, so they're less strict with who they allow to work. And so I did that. Then I went to Australia, And when I went to Australia, I was in Sydney for a few days and then went to Uluru, which is called Ayers Rock in English. And it's that famous big red rock out in the middle of the outback. And I stayed there and I worked for a few months there. Then I changed to another area because when I was staying there, I lost my dad and I couldn't stay in that area because to me, like, well, my dad was my best friend and he just passed away suddenly and I couldn't go home. It was going to be less than $6,000 to fly during New Year's to back to Newfoundland. So I couldn't be there at all. And so since I couldn't be there at all, like, I had to deal with everything alone. And it was the hardest part of my trip was dealing with that. So I left and I went to Alice Springs. And so I started working in McDonald's. Yay! And yeah, it was kind of a little bit harder to work at McDonald's because I was doing the drive-thrus overnight pretty much. And the Australian accent, especially in the Outback, is so hard to understand. Like, I was like muting the customer. What did he say? Because it was so strong and so thick. I was like, oh my god, now I know how people feel when they go to Canada or whatever. And they're like, oh my god, I don't know what they're saying. What are they saying? But yeah, I really liked working there. And then I left, went to Cairns, and then flew back to Japan trying to find another job that would sponsor me. And again, couldn't find anything. So then I went to Korea, and in Korea I stayed there for 4 months, I believe. I could have stayed 6 months because Canada and Korea has a kind of a deal where you both can stay for 6 months at a time for our visas, which is really cool. Found out that I didn't really like Korea as much as Japan as well. Out of all of the countries, I love Japan first, Korea second, and Australia third. Those are my favorite countries. But yeah, I ended up going there trying to look for a job because I heard it was a lot less harder to find a job, which not true. It became obviously more strict because I couldn't find a job. The only job I had was working in a hostel for free to stay, but they actually had a food service, so you got to eat lunch and dinner along with it. So if you just went for that, yeah, that's how I was able to survive in Korea. In Korea, I actually had a big problem. I know it was definitely a foreigner who did it because Korea is very similar to Japan, where if you want to save a seat, you could leave your bag or your phone or your wallet or anything on the seat and nobody will touch it. Nobody will touch it. That spot has been reserved. That's what they think. Somebody is sitting there, I can't sit there. They don't think I'm taking that. Someone took my passport and, well, it was in a little notebook kind of thing. It wasn't a fanny pack, but something you can hang inside your clothes. And it had all the money I had saved from from Australia, and my passport. So they probably just grabbed it and dumped the rest, pretty much. So I needed to get help home, which was insane. It was so difficult to get help, pretty much. So that's probably why I kind of feel a little bit more iffy about Korea. Also because if you go to Japan and you say, oh, I really like Korean culture, their TV shows are pretty cool, their entertainment, their fashion, all that, the food, people here would be like, oh yeah, I like their food too, or I like their shows or whatever. And I haven't had any negative impacts from people not liking me or something because I liked Korean stuff as well as Japanese stuff. And when I went to Korea, a lot of people didn't like me for that because I'm like, but I am in Korea now because obviously I like Korea enough to be here and wanting to try and work and live here. But I had a few people just not like me at all. But I did meet one girl who had a tattoo in a similar location, almost the same thing. It was a star, and she liked Japan stuff too. So I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. And she had an extra. I didn't have any phone at all, and she's like, oh, I can give you my extra one. I'm not using it, and it's just lying around. You can have it. I was like, really? So that was the first time I got a Samsung phone, and from then on, I loved Samsung phones. So now you know that about my phones. My phone is a Samsung S20 Plus, And I'm hoping when I go to renew, not this year, like not this December, but next December, I want to get a Galaxy Note or whatever version, if it's an S20, S Plus or Ultra version where they have the pen in it. Whichever one has the pen, I'm getting, because I love that kind of phone. But anyway, off topic. I was able to find a way home, thankfully, but I had to pay the money back for it. And so that kind of left a sour note in my mouth, because I know it wasn't Koreans who took my money. It was definitely a foreigner. But it just, made me... And so, yeah, then I went back home, and I stayed home from 2013 to 2017 or 18. I forget which year. And then I went back to Vancouver and trying to look for a job again. And I was thinking about doing a flagging program. So flagging is, if you're going through a traffic and there's construction and you see someone with a stop sign and go sign, stop and go, that's a traffic control person. And so I couldn't go that year. Hello, Sansa. So I couldn't do it that year because I thought there was a health emergency with someone in my family. So I decided to go back home that year, and then I would try again the next year. And I did do that. And my whole plan was I was going to go to Vancouver, do the flagging program, which was like you start at $26 or $27 an hour, which is really good pay, and then save as much money as I could. So I was going to go stay in a share house after I was in American Backpackers Hostel, which is now closed, which is that's where I stayed the most, and that's where I found my love of Japan. And the reason why I decided to go to Japan was because of that hostel. So yeah, I ended up going back in the end of 2018 and got my certificate to be able to do my TCP work, so traffic control person work. And the fun thing was there was a polar vortex. So if you don't know, Vancouver, out of all of Canada, has the most mildest winters out of all of Canada. It's very similar to Seattle, where you get a lot of rain, but rarely it will snow. And the snow, if it does happen, it lasts maybe a day or two, and then it's gone. And so I'm able to handle the winters there more out of any other place in Canada, because I hate snow. I hate it. So there was not that many jobs, because once it got to a certain temperature, they could not work the cement trucks. So a lot of jobs where you're stopping traffic to bring in a cement truck and to let them go out in traffic, a lot of those jobs were not around. And so me calling every day, hopefully at 6 a.m., mind you, like I'd have to get up really early, call them to see if there's anything there, and they'll be, we'll call you if there's something available for the afternoon or something. And it was hard to get a job. Like, it was so bad. But I was able to meet somebody 2.5 years before who I thought, okay, maybe when I get there, I will meet him and see how things go. My first plan was to work, save at least $1,000 a month, because I could easily do that if I was staying in a share house. And then once I got to enough money to become a student in Japan in language school, I was going to do that, learn Japanese. I would work I think it's 28 or 29 hours, and put money back into the account. So then I'm always going to have the same amount of money in my bank account. So then the next year I could apply for I could apply to go into a college in Japan, which would allow me the ability to work in a specific industry, which I was going for, probably IT or something, because I'm more into computers than anything else, pretty much. But we decided to meet earlier, because for some reason we thought, we've been talking to each other for 2.5 years. We really get along very well, and I felt like, something about him really connected with me. So we decided for me to come in earlier, and he moved from where we are now to Tokyo, in the west side of Tokyo, and he got a 2-bedroom place so I could have my own room, which I didn't find was weird because I stayed with complete strangers in hostels anyways. So I knew him well enough to know he's safe and he's a nice person, so he was kind enough to just like move on the spot for me, which I was like, oh my god, that's so nice. And so I ended up going back to Japan that way. And so that is my travel story. We went from living with one another to see if we really did connect the same way in person as we did online, and we did. I went down for Golden Week, which is a big major holiday here in Japan where you get almost a week off. And that year was the emperor's birthday or something. Someone high up's birthday was on during Golden Week. And so we got like a full 2 weeks, I think it was. A week or so and a half, I don't know. But anyway, it was a really good trip. Except for I fell on my face during one day when we were exploring. I took a picture, and you know those cement blocks that stop wheels on a car for in the car parking? They don't. A lot of them are just colored the same as the cement. So I didn't see it there, and I tripped over it, and I went face first, and I had like a huge cut on my nose, and it was bleeding. And at first I was like, he's like, are you okay? Oh my god, because he tried to grab me, and I was like, no, I'm not okay. But I got up and I was like, okay, I'm fine, and then I laughed it off. But it was like literally gushing, like not gushing, but like enough blood where he had to give me like a sanitary, like a, what is it called, alcohol wipe, and it didn't burn at all because I was still in shock. And then we went to a conveni, and they were like, oh my god. And so my hands were scraped up, my legs were scraped up. It was so bad. My knee was really bad too, because the way I fell, it twisted in on itself, and it was so bad. But anyway, that was something that we could have for our memory of first time meeting his parents, which is just his mom, because his dad passed the year before, so both of us lost our dad. Anyway, then we went back to Tokyo, and then went back to my hometown in June. But before that, I had to go to Korea to because my 3 months was pretty much up, and I went back to Korea and stayed there for a little over a month. And then we met back in Narita airport and went back to St. John's, Newfoundland, and he met my mom. We could only stay 3 days, but he went to ask for my hand in marriage, so he was very traditional about that. And yeah, and then we flew back, and this was, yeah, around June. And on June 26th, which is the next lucky day, there's good luck and bad luck days for certain things, and for a wedding, that was the next good luck day to get married on. So we got married on that day, and yeah, that's what happened. And then, as we all know, the big Rona hit us, and I haven't been able to do anything ever since. I can't go travel. I really wish that we could go travel to Korea together, and then go to Thailand and Taiwan and maybe Australia or something, but we haven't been able to do anything. And yeah, I've been here ever since. My first visa extension, I got 1 year. Normally you get 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 3 years. And my second year trying, I actually got a 3-year visa. So I am here for 3 years. And yeah, hopefully by next year, which will be my third year anniversary with my wedding, I'm going to apply for my permanent residency. You can only apply on your 3rd year of marriage for permanent residency, and you have to be consecutive married 3 years to be able to do this. You also have to, if you are doing it by yourself because you've been working in Japan, you have to wait 10 years for that. So thankfully I can apply next year around July 26th. I will be going in with my application forms and filling that stuff out, and hopefully I'll get my permanent residency, because I hate doing visas. That's the worst part of being someone in a different country, where you have to get a visa and you're not guaranteed you're going to get it. But since I've been here, I haven't left the country, I'm settled here pretty much. Hopefully they will accept my application, and yeah, I'm gonna, hopefully, if they reopen, there's these Japanese language schools that's only open for residents of Japan, so people who are staying in Japan, they can apply and get a really cheap costing language classes that are run by volunteers. So I tried one and they're closed because of the Rona, and yeah, that sucks. But there you go. That's my video for my travel history and how I got to Japan, pretty much why I got to Japan. But I had a huge long trip that took 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 4 years, and I'm so glad that I did listen to my intuition to go out and travel, because if not, I would still be in my hometown, just as depressed, just as socially anxious as I was, and unable to talk to people like I can now. Like, I can walk up to someone and just start a conversation and have no issues with it, but I can't because now I can't speak the language. So that's my excuse now. So if you have any questions or comments about like anything that I talked about, or want to know more about what single travel is like traveling alone as a woman, leave them down below. I will reply to them as always, if I can. If it becomes a big video and I get a ton of comments, I'll reply to as much as I can. But I have a feeling I will have enough time on my hands to probably reply to everyone. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!